All right. Our book has been under pressure, under another stack of books for a while. Let the glue dry. I'm going to give it a little crease right along this channel between this little piece of cardboard we put in for the spine and the pieces of cardboard that make up the cover and the back. Peel out the wax paper. And we have a nice book that opens. Got a little string to trim. Now comes the final step. Remember the two pieces of paper that we held out at the very beginning, these last two that we folded in half? These are slated to become what's known as end papers. And the end papers are the paper that goes in the front of the book, right between the first sheet of the book and the cover. And it makes it look much nicer than just having this. Now you can use a plain white sheet for an end paper if you like, or you can choose to get fancier, a wallpaper, a gift paper, any sort of fancy paper you might have. I've got some choices. This is an interesting one. I've got a marbled paper. Let's see, I think that's all that's in that roll. I've got some others. This is an interesting world map. This is an interesting oceanographic map. Here's a, I don't know, pilgrim, earth exploratory kind of arrangement. Not sure exactly what, but might make a nice end paper. I think in this case, this world map is going to look pretty good to me. I think that would make a nice end paper. I'm going to cut this out and then trim it to size. Make sure it's wide enough. A little tight. We'll make it work. I know why it's too narrow. We're missing some of the edge of the world over here. All right, we're going to pass on that one. Maybe a nice oceanographic. That's plenty wide. Yep, we're going to trade for that one. I think this shows ocean currents, their direction of flow. I know this is too big, so I know I'm going to have to trim it down to size. Since the top of this is sort of the least interesting part, I'm going to trim off the top part. I'm going to use a regular piece of paper as a guide. Well, and according to this, I need all of it. All right, so there won't be any trimming involved. Just going to take off the edge. Well, that is one sharp knife. Might be time to do a little snap off. There we go. Looks like it's going to fit there fine. May have to trim a little off this edge once it's glued in, but we're going to go ahead and try and glue it in. Now you will need some wax paper for this operation because you need a piece of wax paper between the end paper sheets to keep it from sticking together, and you'll also need a piece of wax paper behind this first sheet to keep the glue from soaking through and gluing all of these sheets together. So let's get a little glue in here and get started. All right, let's see if we can get this in here. Top of the book, top of the end paper. Okay, here's a good start. Let's get some wax paper underneath that first sheet. Let's get some glue on this sheet. Want to be sure to get it out to the edges. And if you get a little squeeze out, it'll just be clear glue that doesn't stick to the wax paper, and it's easy to trim off. I want to be sure to get some down in here. It's called the gutter. Then we're going to get this sheet down and try to align it nicely with the other one. Piece of wax paper goes in between. This is going to go underneath some weight. Let's get the other side done. And you need enough end papers to do both sides of the book, one on the front and one on the back. And that is not even close to straight. You can put the glue on the end paper and then attach it. Only problem with that is that the wet paper gets wet with the glue. It gets a little soft, easy to tear, and can be kind of a pain to manipulate. and back under weight to dry. All right, let's take our book out from under the weight it's been under. Get the wax paper out. Looks pretty good. Opens nicely. Going to trim the end paper to make it flush with the other pages. All right, and there we have it, a nice hardbound book. Lots of blank pages for journaling or drawing or whatever one might like to do with it. Some interesting end papers. That's really all there is to it. It's a little hinge, a groove, an indentation along both sides. That's where this little back piece of cardboard we put along the spine lives, and that gives the book some hinging so that when it opens, the covers hinge along that point. You want to be careful that you don't actually glue the spine to that little piece. The fabric on either side of the text block glues to the covers. Another successful project. So we've been on a journey to make a hardcover, hardbound book, and I hope you will continue. There are lots more things you can do with this straightforward and simple method. Obviously, there's lots of ways to sew the signatures together. There's lots of ways to add bindings. There are bindings with threads over the top. There are ring bindings. There are stab bindings. There's all kinds of different bindings you can use. There's different ways of cutting paper. There's many, many things you can do to change and customize your books to make them exactly the way you want them to be. For some examples, if you want a thicker book, all you have to do is add more signatures and then sew them all together and you get a nice thick book. If you want a smaller book, you can make a tiny little book. You can hang it from a hook and use the little pencil to make notes. You can use innovative colors and surprises when one opens for end papers. This is a dot journal, so lots of little dots in here, and people use these to record tasks and activities as they go through their lives. You can make a black book, complete with black pages, totally black, nice velvet end papers. Use a silver or a white pen to write in one of these. You can emboss a leather cover and maybe add a little star constellation to the front. You can use innovative materials to make a travel journal with a little leather thong for a closure. You can make a love journal. Little heart design on the cover, little tie, pen to go with it. You can use innovative materials like felt for a cover. You can sew through the felt into the signatures to attach the signatures to the felt. You can make a adventure journal. Put a compass or some other astrolabe type structure on the front. And in there you can have many different kinds of paper. You can have lined paper, you can have dot paper, you can have graph paper, you can have glassine paper, all sorts of papers that you can combine internally. You can also make a book that has nothing but pockets in it. So one can slide an article or a picture into each single pocket. You can also make books that look pretty innocent on the cover, but when you open them, you get this rainbow of color. So there's lots and lots of things you can do, and there's lots and lots of ways to do them. Let your imagination run free and have a great time binding books.